middle powers must act together, because if we're not at the table, we're on the menu.
Somewhere Europe has to grow out of the mindset that Europe's problems are the world's problems, but the world's problems are not Europe's problems.
चुन चुन करके हिसाब लेना ये मेरी फितरत है.
Why should it be a problem if I'm smart enough to have multiple options? You should be admiring me.
भारत झुकने वाला भी नहीं.
The rise of India will be determined by India. It will be determined by our strength, not by the mistakes of others.
The old order is not coming back. We shouldn't mourn it. Nostalgia is not a strategy.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Please do like and subscribe before we move forward. Alright, I think you already liked and subscribed, so let's go. See, few days ago or few months ago, I made a couple of videos, not one, explaining the oil pricing, how oil market works, and where the oil market is headed. And I can tell you, before I move forward, I can tell you this in a nutshell, that now India is moving from importing the crude to directly owning the operations of oil fields. Okay, this is India's working on it, and there is some serious work going on in this direction. Okay, so we are going to talk about all that in this video. All right, so stay with me. It's not going to be a very long video, so stay with me. Now, so what I explained about the market, what I explained is that the way dollar is as in the dollar devaluation, global inflation, global economic slowdown, then your insurance premiums, war problems all over, right? All that has increased the global oil prices, that is crude prices. And global crude prices have gone up, and refined crude products have gone even more higher. Okay, now, so there is some serious margin here, but the problem is that purchasing the crude oil or importing the crude oil as such for any company, it's not a very profitable business considering the situation, the way market is. So if you are going to import crude oil at the current price, then you're not going to be able to sell it actually, okay, with that kind of margin. But what if you go and own the oil field, or you go and purchase or import really cheap Russian oil? Then if you can do these things, then you have the chance to do what? You have the opportunity to export really cheap refined crude product. You get it? And this is the core thesis, okay? This is the core concept behind this marketing strategy. All right, now let's talk about what exactly is going on. Okay, and for that, let me share my screen real quick, and then we will move forward. Okay, but this is not about some news or something. I'm using this news to actually explain you where the market is headed and what are the predictions or repercussions of these things, and how do you understand this market trend. Okay, and how does that impact the geopolitics? Oh, this is important. All right, so let's look at it. So India hopes to take over operation of Venezuelan oil fields from PDVSA. Charles Kennedy. It's not me writing it or some Indian dude writing it. This is written by Charles Kennedy from oilprices.com. Okay, oil prices is the website if you really want to go know about the oil pricing, oil market, and all that. Okay, so what that saying is that India's ONGC is Oil and Natural Gas Corporation. It's a public sector company. So ONGC Videsh is a branch of ONGC which is negotiating agreements to become the operator of two Venezuelan projects currently operated by state-owned PDVSA. PDVSA is Venezuelan public sector that owns certain oil fields. So what India is doing is that Indian public sector is negotiating agreements to become operator of these two Venezuelan oil fields. One of them is called San Cristobal. San Cristobal, and second one is called Carabobo One. Okay, Carabobo One and San Cristobal. ONGC Videsh already owns 40% stake in your San Cristobal, whereas ONGC and other Indian companies together hold an around 18% stake in Carabobo One. Okay, now here's the thing. So what ONGC is working on is that ONGC is saying that okay, we want operator uh, level of uh, operation agreement into it so that we will manage all this and you don't have to worry about it. And for that, they need almost 60% or more than that of stake in it. Okay, and that's what ONGC is working to get. And I believe that ONGC has already received or they have already gotten this San Cristobal, the first one. In first company, they have already got 60% of stake in it. Okay, so what's happening is that India is not buying or owning Venezuelan oil fields outright. So as a land or as an oil field, Venezuela still retains the ownership of those reserves. But what ONGC wants is the operational control, managing investment, production, field development instead of remaining a passive minority shareholder in it. So when ONGC becomes a operator in this whole thing, so what happens? When ONGC, which is a public sector company, becomes the operator, then besides investment and day-to-day operations and all, ONGC will get to decide who is going to go there and set up the refineries, how we are going to refine the oil, where they are exporting the oil, what are the timelines to export it. Why? Because when Venezuelan PDVSA was holding the or handling the day-to-day operation, then they were delaying things because of corruption or whatever the reason is. They were delaying things, they were not operating properly. Okay, so this is why ONGC basically went ahead and took control of it. And now what they can do is they can actually ask companies to go and invest there, revive the refineries, do all other works, field development work and all that, right? Now the question number one is that why this has suddenly become possible, why India did not talk about all these things before. See, this became possible because for many years uh, ONGC had restricted its activities because of American sanctions. And this is why, see, when lots of people say that, oh, look, China is here, China is there, China is in Venezuela, China was doing this and this in Venezuela, now all of a sudden, why India couldn't do it? See, this is the reason. For India to work there, India can only work in dollars, especially Venezuela wants to work in dollars. But in China's case, what happened is that China was asking Venezuela to use yuan instead of using dollar to bypass the sanctions. And this was the main reason why Maduro has to go. And Maduro, to maintain his power and all that, I think Maduro was working with China to maintain the trade and everything else with China in yuan. All right, so there is that angle. This is why Maduro was gone. Maduro did not leave from there because Maduro did something to Donald Trump or Maduro hit on Donald Trump's wife or something. No, none of that. Main thing was that Maduro made a mistake of working with China, that too in yuan. So when you are bypassing the dollar like that too in the American neighborhood, then of course, I mean, they will have problem with it. Okay, so that's why Maduro was gone, and now since Maduro is gone, and I think some Rodriguez or some lady, she's the acting president over there. So she visited India, right? And this is the thing; these are the things that were discussed in her visit. Okay, so now ONGC is basically going to take the operational control of those oil fields, and because of sanctions, they couldn't do anything. But now, since certain sanctions have been lifted, so Venezuela can actually ask for investment, and Venezuela can export the oil, and foreign entities can go and invest in Venezuela. Okay. So what this does is that India is what? India is moving from buying oil to controlling the oil production. Now this is very important. Now, why this is very important? See, you have to understand this. There is a, I would say, there is a deeper story. Okay, the deeper story is that India may receive few more discounted Venezuelan oil cargoes. Okay, and I had made video on this thing too. And the video was like, remember, like India was when India was importing Venezuelan oil. So what they were doing is they were coming up with a mechanism to uh, get rid of the middleman. Instead of buying the Venezuelan oil through the commodity markets, they were working to bypass the commodity markets altogether and go to the Venezuelan government directly and purchase it. So this way they can shave off some money, some prices from it. And when they shave off that price, so what's going to happen is that crude oil becomes cheaper. Okay, and you buy the cheap crude oil. What you do? You refine it and you go and sell it. You sell the refined crude product, right? But now what's going to happen is that because now India is going to take over the operational control of these oil fields. So now what's going to happen is that Indian refineries are going to be set up, or actually there are other things too. Instead of setting up the Indian companies, they can go set up refineries, but they're going to revive the already existing refineries over there. Okay, and so that will be a lot cheaper, and that's going to be more economical when they revive it, and that's the plan. Okay, that is the plan from HPCL and other, like HPCL is there, you have MRPL is there, then Reliance is there. All these could actually eventually go and they can go and follow these oil fields, and then they can just go and set up their refineries over there, right? Like Reliance is already working to set up a refinery in the Browns field in Texas. So, and because the ONGC is government owned, so this becomes a lot easier. Why? Because then ONGC could become India's entry point over there, right? ONGC can establish the political relationships, production infrastructure, and crude supply, right, needed for Indian companies to enter later on. Okay, but this is what China was doing. But China was doing in what? China was trying to do in yuan. Okay, so the way I'm looking at this whole thing is that ONGC enters first, and then Indian refiners and infrastructure companies, they will follow ONGC. All right, and let me see what else is there. So the way I'm looking at it, this whole thing, okay, is this. There's another thing. There's another interesting thing that is already happening, is that Indian refineries. You can go look it up. All these that I'm talking about, okay, the Indian refineries are already being set up in Trinidad and Tobago. Okay, Trinidad and Tobago. So what Trinidad and Tobago refineries are going to do is that they're going to take the Venezuelan oil. They're going to take the Venezuelan oil and refine it in Trinidad and Tobago, and then export it from there. So my point is that you will see Indian companies setting up refineries in the Western Hemisphere locally and purchase the either take the operational control of the oil fields, or just purchase the cheaper oil and then uh, supply these countries with the, I mean, and then export that refined crude. Because right now what's happening is that um, right now it's very hard, it's very expensive to import Venezuelan crude, take it to India, refine it over there, and then export it wherever, right? That unnecessary waste of money and time in the supply chain. But if you can just become a supplier of refined crude product in the Western Hemisphere by setting up your refineries and everything over there, then guess what? You are already controlling the Western Hemisphere. Why the chances of India of succeeding in this whole thing is a lot more? Because see, Latin American countries don't have that many refineries. Okay, Venezuela had some refineries, but those refineries are not functional as much as they're supposed to be. Okay, so Indian companies will have to go and refine it. Look at America. America does not have that much capacity or money to invest in setting up all these big refineries anymore. This is why Reliance is going over there. Canada. Canada has 19 refineries, but Canada's 19 refineries are, Canada cannot expand further more than 19 refineries. Okay? Because of climate change and all the bumbo jumbo that happens in Canada type countries. So Canada cannot expand its refineries, but what Canada can do, that if there are refineries around refineries in the neighborhood, then Canada can sell its crude to them and they can just take the cheap crude and refine it, right? And that's what's happening. And another reason why I'm saying that the market is going to shift is because, let's say, if US wants to bring down the refined crude prices, then crude price has to come down too. An only way to bring down the crude prices is if US gets out of the export market. US entered the crude oil export market in 2015. Now, if this price is out of control, then the chances are that they may actually get out of the export market. So this way they can just simply use their domestic production and refine it using a foreign entity without exporting or anything, and use that refined crude for the local market. That way the prices, their local pricing, if the prices of refined crude, the gasoline and all that will be cheaper in America. Hmm? And if Indian refineries are going to refine it all over, and ONGC will have the control of those oil fields and everything, then with refined crude, the gas prices and everything else will go down in India as well. Then Canada has the refined crude, but uh, Canada may actually export its crude and then import the refined crude from Indian companies. So this way, it will be cheaper for Canada too. Why? Because Canada will have to just pay the offset, refining offset. That's about it. So it will be a win-win situation for each and every party. And this is why I'm saying that crude oil market is, or the oil market altogether, is about to take a big shift. And this is the primary reason why uh, India is expanding its refining capacity. Okay, it's expanding its refining capacity multifold. It's not even little bit. All right, they are doing it in India. They are doing it offshore as well. So you have to understand this thing, and this is gonna change the whole entire game for India. That India will be the top oil producer or supplier, let's just say, without having any crude oil. Isn't that something interesting, right? So this is it for this video, guys. Please do like and subscribe, and I will talk to you guys in another video. Take care.